Douglas Kostner. I'm the Director of Music Ministry here, and I'm going to give you ever so brief a background on myself because we want to find out about the organ, not about me. I started piano when I was 4. I'm a latecomer to the organ, which means I didn't touch the organ until I was 19. That's late. Usually you start around 12, 13. It was not something that I was planning to do. I sort of fell into it, and here I am. I've been doing this for about 23 years or so. I've been here for 3 years, and the completion of this organ is a long time in coming. As a concert instrument, May 2nd will be its debut. The organist is Kent Tritle, if you know the name from Sacred Music in a Sacred Space in New York City, St. Ignatius Loyola, also the organist of the New York Philharmonic. So he knows what he's doing, and he'll start us off. Enough about me. I'm going to talk about the organ this morning. And before we do that, I have a couple of props here. The first is this lovely painted item. The story behind this is my very artistic aunt, my brother's sister, found a bunch of these funny-looking things in somebody's yard sale. Who knows where they got it from? She said, wow, that would be neat to paint on and make a little ornament. She had no idea what it was. So she bought a few and did this to it. She's very good with painting, and gave one to me for Christmas one year and said, I don't know what the hell it is, but it looks nice. Here it is. And I said, you don't know how appropriate a gift this is. This is an organ pipe. It's a bourdon, which is a specific type of pipe. More about that later. You notice it's made of wood. We're probably used to thinking of organ pipes as being metal tubes like you see up there. But they're not only, and they're not only round as you see. They can be square, they can be triangular, they can be curved, they can have hoods on the top or little stoppers like this, they can have mouths like this, or we like to personalize our organ pipes. This is a mouth, this is a lip, it even has teeth. Some organ pipes have ears. I don't know what you'd call that, maybe that's a wart. But this is how you tune this particular pipe. And it's got a very lovely fluty sound. Almost like a recorder. So that's its pitch. Organ pipes come in different sizes as well as shapes. Very simply put, the bigger the pipe, the lower the pitch. The organ here at this church has pipes ranging in size from approximately 3/4 of an inch tall. And as thinner than a pencil, as in if you blow on it, that thing's going to bend. Very delicate, very tiny. To as tall as, you can see in the facade in the back, over 16 feet tall. And they weigh as little as a couple ounces to approximately 240 pounds. That's a big range. The lowest note on this organ it's a low C, and you more like feel it than hear it. It's called a 32-foot pitch. And the smallest pipe is called a 1 1/3 foot pitch. And those numbers mean literally the size of the low C on the organ. So when organists talk about ranks of pipes, you sometimes hear them say 8 foot, or 16 foot, or 4 foot. That's a rank of pipes, and an 8 foot is the pitch that you would find on a piano. If you play middle C on a piano, on an organ, that would be 8-foot pitch. You play middle C, you get middle C. If you play middle C at 16-foot pitch, you play middle C, but you get the octave below it. 4-foot pitch will be the octave above it. 2 foot is the octave above that. Make sense? So far, so good? Okay. The next point about the organ, because this is very important to how the organ operates. This 16 and 8 and 4 comes from something in the universe that we have no control over, but have sort of harnessed in order to create music. It's called the overtone series. It's something that happens every time you hear music or listen to pitch, and I have bells here to illustrate what I mean. I have a very low bell. Notice it's big, just like the organ pipes, and a higher bell that's small. I'm going to play the low bell first. Listen to the pitch. I'm going to play the higher bell now. Listen to the pitch. We would admit they're two different pitches, right? I'm going to play this, so I want you to really get this pitch in your head, okay? Now watch what happens. Yep. Can you hear this pitch in this bell? There it is. So how does a bell this size able to play the same note as a bell this size? That's the magic of the harmonic series. This pitch lives inside of this one. They're like those Russian nesting eggs, right? It's easy to hear this on big bells and on big pipes because the harmonic series encompasses the low note plus the octave above it, and then a fifth above that, a fourth above that, and they keep getting smaller and smaller. That's physics. It just exists in the natural universe. When they built organs, they took advantage of that. And the organ is able, in many ways, to highlight these harmonics in ways that other instruments cannot. We artificially highlight them. And I'll show you how we do that, okay? So, there's the beginning. First things to know. Organs have pipes. They come in different sizes and shapes to create different pitches. And they take advantage of this physical universe harmonic series. So far, so good? Okay. Now I'm going to show you the beast. This is Karen. She helps move the organ. Later we're going to put her in a box and saw her in half. Just kidding. This console is the nerve center of the organ. It's where I live on Sunday morning. It weighs approximately 800 pounds. Watch how easily it moves. See how easy? I don't have to do any work. I'll get the bench. It's okay. Watch the floor. Is that about centered? More or less, more or less? Okay, here it is. I won't bring the bench out yet so you can see it clearly. There are 4 keyboards. We call these manuals. We don't say keyboard because there's another one down there. It's like that big thing that Tom Hanks jumped on in FAO Schwartz, right? It's a keyboard for your feet. So these are called manuals, and this here is the pedal. Just like a piano. White keys, black keys, it's exactly what you expect to find, and in fact, it's no different in that respect. Pardon me. The difference between an organ and a piano, as far as technique is concerned, is that on an organ, a note will only play for as long as you hold that key down. Release the key, the note stops. You know, on a piano, you have a pedal down there, you can fool around. Hit the pedal, bang the key, and that key will keep going as long as you hold the pedal down and the string vibrates. Not so on the organ. Here's middle C. Gone. The other thing you might notice is no matter how hard I bang that note, it's not going to get any louder. Doesn't matter. I cannot control the volume by touch. We have other tricks to do that. I'm going to show you the aforementioned 8 and 16, etc. It's the same note right here, middle C. I'm going to use the pencil trick. Same note. At 16, at 8, at 4, and 2. And how about this trick? It's not a C at all, is it? It's a different note. Remember the harmonic series? I say that different notes reside in that fundamental pitch. That's what I said before about the organ artificially producing the harmonic series. I'm going to add that fifth in. You can barely hear it, right? Something that your ear picks up. It sort of rounds out and fills up the tone a little bit. Besides that C, that fundamental, you're getting the fifth above it as well. Other stops on the organ are called mixtures, and they're not very pretty by themselves. There's lots of pitches in there. Again, harmonic series. When you add that on top of 8, 16, 4, etc., it fills out the sound. It's what gives the organ its characteristic organ sound. Those mixture stops. So far, so good. Some more about the stops on the organ. We have different colors, timbres, colors. Like in orchestra, you have strings and woodwinds, and brass and percussion. On the organ, you have, well, woodwinds. That's all it is. It's all pipes that air goes through. But we try to imitate other members of the orchestra. It is not meant to substitute or replace. Rather, it is a coloring. So I can say we have flutes on the organ. And let's have a nice little flute here. Compare it with this. Which we call a string sound. There's no string up there being vibrated with a bow. It's still a pipe. But the way they build that pipe gives it a little more of an edge. If you contrast it with a flute, we have reed pipes that might sound like an oboe. Or a rather tame trumpet. Or a rather obnoxious trumpet. I'm being much too polite. See these pedals down here? That's how we control volume on the organ. I got the pedals down so the volume is low. It's very simple. We put all those pipes in a big box and shut the door. And that's how we get soft. If we want to get loud, we open the door. So the pipe is not changing. It's opening and closing a room, literally. They're called swell boxes. And they have little shutters on, like louvers, you know, Venetian blinds, right? They open and close. I gotta sit down for this one. Otherwise, I'll lose my balance and fall down. I'm going to play the trumpet again and open the box. So you can hear the range of sound, volume. It's a pretty good contrast, right? called the principal sound. It's the pipe organ sound. There you have it. The organ in a nutshell. Different pipes, different timbres, different tone qualities, the ability to control the volume, and what else did I say about it? Oh, the artificial enhancement of the harmonic series. I guess I should tell you why we need so many keyboards. A typical organ, of which you might say 90% of organs out there, will have 3 manuals. That's normal. Depending on what country you're from, the most important manual may be this one here, as it is in the United States. This is called the Great, because it's really important, and also because it's right out in front, and it's not in the box, so you can't control its volume. In France, these two are switched. I think everywhere else in the world, this is the Great. The one above it is the Swell. We're very happy people organists. Everything is great and swell. The Swell is called that because of the volume. It can swell and diminuendo. All the pipes for this division are up there in the back in a box. This one here is called the choir division, or if you're a very happy organist, we call this the positive. But here it's a choir. It's in a box on that side in the back. So if you were to sit right here, you could hear the back and forth if I were to play it that way. It doesn't come out quite as clearly out there, but you can play the 2 sides against each other. That leaves this top one here. This is called the solo. And generally speaking, you play, well, solo melodies up there, accompanied by one of the other keyboards. The pedal down here is everywhere. I mean, it's thrown all over the place. Some of the pedal is in the box. Some of the pedal is over here, the really big pipes in front. Some of the pedal is over there in the back in a box. It's sort of peppered all over. The pipes are so big that you sort of put them wherever you can fit them. So that's why we have so many different manuals. We have couplers up here, this line here, that allow us to move the sound from any manual to any other, which is very convenient because on Christmas Eve at midnight, after we've played 3 services and we're really getting tired, we don't want to put our hands up there anymore and wear out our shoulders. So we switch everything around and just play like this. Don't tell the pet, oh, he's here.
He's here.
That's not the real reason at all. There are many reasons why you might want to switch things around. Couplers. All of these buttons here, I haven't counted them, but between here and down there, there must be about 60 of them, more or less, 60 buttons. It makes it look like an airplane cockpit. And I wish I could tell you that every single one of them had a really highfalutin purpose that it took years to learn about, but it's not that difficult. Those buttons there are convenience buttons. They are presets that we can fix to whatever we want. So instead of sitting down and saying, what registration do I want, and pulling out every stop one at a time, we do that beforehand, and we set one of those buttons. And then later on, we just go, beep, and everything we need is right there. And since there are about 60 of them, you see what a marvelous array of sounds we can set before we need them. It makes our life easier. The purists will tell you that you don't need all those buttons. You can do everything by hand. But the purists also will only play Bach for the rest of their lives. So with Bach, you can get away with that. With modern music, they write for the instrument that's available. So they expect you to use these buttons, and we won't worry about the purists. So, I guess that's my little spiel about how this monster works. So far, so good. Any questions about that before I give a little mini demo? Go ahead.
How would the sound be here if the pipes face this way?
That's a trick question. If these pipes, as they were right now, were faced out, they would be much more aggressive and loud. On the other hand, if these pipes faced out, the organ builder would tune them and regulate them in such a way that they would not be aggressive and loud. That's why it's a trick question. So it would affect the sound, of course, but the organ builder, knowing that beforehand, would regulate it so that the end result would not be much different from what you hear. Make sense? There was another one.
Where does the air come from and go to? I mean, air has to blow through. Where does that come? And the second question is, play some pedals and talk about your shoes.
Okay.
Would you repeat her questions? Because we
Yes,
didn't
I
hear
will. I will. It's a fundamental question, too. Where does the air come from? Because it's a woodwind. And before electricity, the air came from two kids who, on each side of a bellows, sat there pumping. And they gave them a piece of candy, and they were happy. When electricity came, you got big horsepower air blowers. It's up behind the choir box, up there, right above the pastor's desk.
It's hot air, of course.
Hot air, yes. I didn't say it. It's big. It's like a turbine. You don't want to get too close to it. You turn that thing on, and it sucks everything within a 40-yard radius right into it. I'm just kidding. It blows out air at a constant pressure, which the organ builder regulates, but more about that in a second. That air, that's the raw air. It's coming out of that blower. It passes through big ducts, and it is held, sort of like a singer takes a breath and holds in their diaphragm here. The diaphragm of the organ is a wind chest, a reservoir, they call it. It's a great big box with leather-like hinges, so it can expand and contract like an accordion, and very, very powerful springs that hold it tense. So it's always closed. You turn on the blower, and it expands against those springs. The reason for that is those springs keep the wind pressure steady. If you were to hit a really loud chord, put every stop on and go slam, you would see the box go because it's immediately taking that air out. If that pressured box were not there, the whole organ would go bing. It would change pitch because the air pressure would change. So that reservoir keeps it steady and keeps the pitch steady. From that air reservoir, it goes through lots of smaller pipes into wind chests on which sit the pipes. Each wind chest is opened and closed by one of these knobs here. So when we pull one of these out, it opens the valve and lets wind from the reservoir into the chest on which the pipes sit. Then you press the key, and it opens the individual pipe. So that's the wind system. It's simple and complicated at the same time, right? There's a lot of mechanisms. There's something else we can do with the wind. To make it sound as though the instrument, the pipe, is almost like a human playing it. Watch my oboe. Here's my oboe. Pretty straight tone, right? There's a little mechanism in there that will oscillate the airbox. Watch what happens to my oboe when I put it on. more human. It's called a tremolo, another organ trick. I think that's everything I can say about the air. Part two of her question was pedals and shoes. I have funny looking shoes on, and they're not very comfortable because they have not yet made the organ shoe in the width that I need. Here they are. They sort of look like Capezio dance shoes, right? The bottom is very, very soft leather. If you wear these on the street for 2 days, your toes will stick through. It's not meant for walking. And the heel is actually moderately high, about an inch. The heel is hard, the sole is soft. That makes it easier to move around the pedal board down there. Oof. So you can do stuff like this. You can go pretty quick down there if you don't move much and you just let the feet go. The shoes do help. Rubber sole and you'll get stuck. No shoes and you'll do all sorts of nasty things. So organ shoes are specifically for the pedal down there. I guess I should also mention what the pedal does, because it's not simply the bottom, although that's probably what it's most famous for. We do have lots of low sounding pitches. Loud ones, and really low ones. That's the one you just feel. But not only for bass, because catch this one. That's pretty high. Sometimes you use your feet to play the melody. It happens a lot, actually, if the accompaniment is really fast and intricate, then they'll give it to the manuals and they'll put the melody down there in the feet. And with all these little tricks about pipe size and moving things from one keyboard to another, you can put things any way you like them. So you can easily have your feet playing the highest sound in the piece while your hands are playing the low sound. But 90% of the time, that's the bass. This is the accompaniment. And this is the melody. That's usually how it works. Okay? That was long-winded. Tell me.
Douglas, what exactly, please, do they mean when they speak of a Baroque organ? I think the Delaware organ that has no swell pedal at all because it's so Baroque.
Oh yes, we're getting into fine points now.
What was the question?
The question is, what do they mean when they talk about a Baroque organ? The organ is a very old instrument. It's older than the piano. In fact, the piano is pretty much the newest thing, unless you're talking about modern-day synthesizers. The organ was invented, if you can believe this, as far back as the ancient Greeks. Chalk that up to what we owe them, right? It had one little keyboard and pipes on it, but there it was an organ. So over the course of centuries, you can imagine, it developed. In the Baroque period, we're talking 1600s to mid-1700s, their style of music required a sound that they liked. Clear, crisp, bright, good for contrapuntal music. They didn't need louds and softs and romantic flourishes. It was a different type of music. So the organ they built did not have these pedals that controlled volume. They didn't worry about volume. It was one volume. Their contrast was moving from one manual to another. Contrast and sound, not necessarily volume. So some modern builders today say that they want to build a Baroque organ. So they'll build an organ that will play Bach and Vivaldi and Handel and Scheidt and Telemann and any Baroque composer you can name magnificently. But you would not want to hear romantic music on that instrument. It would not be able to do it at all. Be missing a lot. So there's a Baroque organ. There's three main styles they like to build today. North German Baroque, or French Romantic, or American Eclectic. Because this thing can feasibly do everything. I can make it sound North German Baroque, and I can make it sound French Romantic, depending on the music that I choose and how I choose to register it. It means I can commit a lot of sins as well. I can play Bach as though he were a French Romantic and really annoy all the professors at Columbia. Sometimes you want to. You know, it's okay. It's like nobody will get hurt if you do that. It's an aesthetic, not everyone will appreciate, but you can do it. So that's why different types of organs. Tell me.
When the music is written for the organ, I mean, as you just said, do they indicate what registers you would use and so on? Or do you decide that, you know?
Depends on the composer, time period, and music. Baroque, they won't tell you. They give you the notes and say, go do. 20th century, I'm thinking in particular Olivier Messiaen, recently died. Recently, it's probably 20 years. But he would indicate every single stop and where it changed. And if your organ didn't have that stop, well, then you had to find a reasonable substitute. In between French Romantic, let's say, they will say, I want this sound. And then you got to find it on your instrument. Guidelines, right? So it changes according to composer and time period. Yes?
You said you had pipes as small as 3 inches. Where would they be?
3/4 of an inch.
3/4.
Really tiny.
Yeah.
They are on both sides, mounted on racks, of course, in the back. You can't see them. You can't see them. If anybody's feeling adventurous, I can show you what it looks like inside that box with no crawling. No crawling. Usually you got to get on your knees and crawl through. But on that side, I can open a door for you and you can peer in without trouble. You got to climb a flight of stairs and that's it. If you like, we can do that later. For anyone who wishes, it's up to you. Anything else?
Thank you.
I wondered where you got all this information.
I made it up.
Did the company train you?
No, this is pretty much the process they put you through when you go to school for organ. I went to Manhattan School of Music, and I studied organ performance. And you know, when you go to a conservatory, they pretty much focus you on your instrument, right? It's not a liberal arts school where you get a broad smattering of everything. It's a conservatory where you walk in the morning and they go, organ. 10 a.m. organ, 10:30 organ history, 10:45 French organ history, 10:50 Baroque organ history. It's just organ. So we have this drilled into our heads from day one of freshman year in conservatory. It's part of the process of learning. It makes sense, right? I mean, you got to know the instrument.
Douglas, at the risk of sounding like your agent,
Yes.
let me ask this question. Following up on this question here, how many schools of music or conservatories are teaching organ, and about how many students are taking up and studying and pursuing organ here in the U.S. and even worldwide?
I'm going to try not to cry and I answer this. The answer to the first question, how many schools of music offer organ? The answer is precious few. The depressing thing there is even my own alma mater, Manhattan School, has eliminated the bachelor program in organ performance. Eliminated. The master and doctorate is still there. They've eliminated the bachelor. I don't know why. It's pretty sad when a music school cuts music, But this is an unfortunate fact. Juilliard still has a program, but that's the only school in the city right now that does. I believe Manus used to. I don't know if they do anymore. Then you got to go upstate to Eastman School in Rochester. They have one. Indiana has one. There's a smattering of schools in the country, but it's not a lot. It's really not a lot. As for how many students, when I went to school, there were 800 students in my class. Of those 800, 2 were organists. That's the other side. There's not that many. Not that many. The AGO, American Guild of Organists, part of their mission is to sort of talk up the organ as an instrument and try and get folks interested in playing it. And it's a noble effort. I myself, I can speak from experience, had I not literally been grabbed by the collar and sat on an organ bench, probably would not have thought to take this instrument as a career. There was some desperate church on Christmas Eve who called me and said, "Our organist is sick, can you substitute?" And I said, "I've never played anything in my life. I'm a pianist." They were desperate, right? The rest is sort of history. But I'm an accident. How many people say, "I want to study organ"? You certainly don't find it in your neighborhood music schools. There's no organ faculty in the city. It's difficult. It's difficult.
How many years did you take from the beginning to where you are now?
From my desperate attempts at playing on Christmas Eve, I took 2 years and then decided to go to school for it. I was already at another college. I went to Fordham University. I finished a bachelor's there and then went back for a bachelor in organ performance. That took me 3 years instead of 4, and then 2 more years master's. So I studied in conservatory 5 years, the organ. I've been playing it now for 22 years. So 5 years, we'll say, formal conservatory study, and 17 more of study, study, study. Never stops.
What did Fordham offer you?
I took a psychology degree.
Oh.
Yes, I had parents.
Who wanted
You are not going to make a living as a musician. Yes. Go study something else. And I did. Psychology serves me very well with the choir. I'm just kidding.
Right on the button now.
Anything else?
Can we hear you
Yes.
play?
I know that the church has gone through several years now of getting a new organ. How does this compare to the old one?
Oh boy, no comparison at all.
Can you repeat the question?
How does this instrument compare to the one it replaced? I got to tell you about the 2 it replaced. The first organ that was here was a pipe organ built by the Aeolian Skinner Company. Magnificent firm, historical, well-known firm. Those organs that are still around today are worth their weight in gold and well taken care of. Like every mechanical beast, it needed help after 40 years. Leather deteriorates, mostly. Leather deteriorates, and other things go wrong. That's a lot of money to fix. At the time it came to fix that, a decision was made not to, but rather to install an electronic instrument, which has no pipes, speakers. That instrument was here for about 30 years, and lo and behold, it was discovered that they deteriorate too. So this replaced the electronic. And the thing about the real pipes is that these do not deteriorate unless you have a flood or a fire. This thing's going to last way beyond me. These pipes will not rust, bend. They will not change. They are stable. So what you need to maintain are the moving intricacies, the valves made of leather, the wind chests made of leather and wood, and the glue that seals that. That requires maintenance. So when you put an instrument like this in, and they did this here, You include with the price of the instrument a set amount of money in an account that will, when the time comes, be available for those repairs. And that time won't come for 25, 30 years, but the pipes will still be good.
I have another question relative to wood. Wood reacts to temperature and moisture, so how do you protect the pipes?
Everything in there reacts to temperature and moisture.
Oh.
You try to keep the climate as stable as you can. Around here, it's difficult in the summer. In the winter, it's pretty stable in here. It's warm, 70, 68, 72. It's pretty stable. In the summertime in here, the temperature goes way, way up, and it throws the instrument out of tune, mostly. The pipes change pitch because they expand and contract. Nothing really serious happens beyond that. Again, the moisture, they won't rust, they won't deteriorate in that.
No, I was thinking of the sound more than...
Right, it changes the sound, but you tune it, and then, you know, you just gotta tune it every few months.
Like tuning a
Thank you.
piano.
Right.
Are these pipes new or are some of them from the original?
They are all new pipes. Every one of the 3,900 of them.
Wow.
3,900 pipes, all of them are new.
How many organ makers are there?
Organ makers, there are quite a number of good firms in the United States. There's probably about a dozen in the United States. And of course, other countries, in particular, Canada has a few good firms, England, Germany, France, Italy. Those are the 5 countries with pretty well-known organ builders. There are others. There's a pretty good maker in the Czech Republic. But generally speaking, the instruments you see here are American, Canadian, possibly English and German. But that's the short answer. So I'm going to play 2 pieces. I tried to pick short pieces just to show a quick contrast between the soloing out of a stop on one manual with accompaniment here and bass down there, the aforementioned, the usual scheme, and then another piece that is a little more obnoxious. So, I will play the pretty one first. The composer is Johann Hanf, and the title is in German. It means more or less my most beloved God. That's the title. And you guys are my practice session for the prelude on Sunday morning. It's a hymn tune that folks would have known from singing in church, made a little bit fancy for solo organ. That's also why they're so short. They're really meant to be played before you stand up and sing. But we're going to sing. The next one is, in thee is joy. This is Mr. Bach. And this one has a little bit of a fun pedal part to it. So there we have it. Anything else? I guess I can say hello in there.
Douglas, would you explain the recording system you have on this?
On this?
Yeah.
And it's a possible recording system. This instrument, it's not enabled, but with a little extra dongle, let's say, I would be able to record something that I play and then hit a button and play it back. So Sunday morning I could, go have a drink behind the chancel while everybody out here would be singing the opening hymn. But it's theoretically possible here. We don't have it hooked up. It's MIDI, it's a computer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Saturday evening, May 2nd, coming up at 7:30, we are having a very fine organist come to give this thing its first whirl as a concert instrument, as opposed to a sanctuary instrument. The organist is Kent Tritle, if you know the name from Sacred Music in a Sacred Space in New York City, St. Ignatius Loyola, also the organist of the New York Philharmonic.